Today, we are breaking down the best and worst performers from college football week number 8. Let's get right into this. I do this every single week, so if you are new, feel free to like, comment, subscribe. I do this for NFL rookies as well, and I do mock drafts, if not one, then two every single week. Look at these results. People are making thousands every month betting on sports completely risk-free. The secret? They're using OddsJam. OddsJam isn't just another betting app. It's turning the entire system in your favor. Here's how. OddsJam uses a strategy called arbitrage, finding odds discrepancies across the sports books. You bet both sides, and no matter the outcome, you will profit. Here's an example. If you bet $500 on Boise State to win on FanDuel and $335 on their opponent San Francisco on DraftKings, you're guaranteed to make $50, win or lose. It's that simple. With OddsJam mobile app, you'll get real-time alerts on these opportunities every day. People are making thousands of dollars every month. And to get you started, use promo code Hail Mary for 35% off and a 7-day free trial. I guarantee you'll profit during the trial. And if you don't cancel with one click, no questions asked. Don't leave money on the table. Go to OddsJam and use promo code Hail Mary and start making money the smart way. Let's get into this, starting out with the superstars of the week in no particular order. We have Nyjalik Kelly, Malachi Lawrence, Pookie Bear Lawrence's number 2, technically, based on his performance, number 1 at UCF. Edge rusher. Also has over 35-inch arms confirmed, just under 250 pounds, but he was on a tear this past week. 81 defensive grade, 9 pressures, 3 defensive stops, and a forced fumble. Obviously, if you guys are new, usually if I end up going through and I grade every single game that is going to be NFL translatable, or at least somewhat translatable, to keep things manageable. If you are getting like 6 pressures or above, I'm going to be able to note it down. And there's a much longer extended list of this over on the Patreon. Make sure to go check that out. And then, of course, all the other good stuff. So regardless, fantastic performance for Nyjalik Kelly. To make sure this video is not a billion years long, let's continue on to our next superstar of the week, Brian Parham. I had it originally as Byron, so that's why I ended up having to slip there. Brian Parham, linebacker from UConn. Funnily enough, this is not going to be the only UConn player that we talk about. A little bit undersized at 5'11 and 223, but this past week he had an 88 defensive grade with 4 pressures, 3 of those being sacks. Pretty damn awesome. And here's the kicker. 11 defensive stops. And this isn't some cupcake game like, okay, well, you know, it's Twat State University. No. This is versus Boston College, who they beat. 11 defensive stops, 3 sacks, targeted once, line of completion for 8 yards. One of the most dominant performances I've seen statistically from a linebacker that I have never heard of, but definitely a name to be checking out for this draft season. Probably going to be one of those guys who could end up being like one of the practice squad guys who surprises in preseason. Julian Sains next. I try to keep this draft focused, but whenever a player has a fantastic game, I always want to keep my eyes open for those players who have a future that is brighter than just what's coming over the horizon. And for those of y'all who are subscribed to the Patreon, I have the full comprehensive list. I do have it there for every single guy who stands out. I don't care if you're a true freshman. I don't care if you're a 7th-year player, one of which we're about to talk about, not in this superstar portion, but in the star portion, but still. I want to make sure that you guys understand this is primarily draft focused, but at the same time, I also want to be able to give credit to those players who are doing a fantastic job earlier than possible to go to the NFL. So Julian Sains this past week, 42 throws, 36 completions for 394 yards, 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 4 big-time throws, 1 turnover-worthy play, 5 carries, 10 yards, and a missed tackle forced. For me, again, if you're new, I am a huge sucker for big-time throws. I think those are far more translatable than just working within an offense and, just taking wide-open shots. Granted, you need to do that on a down-by-down basis when you go to the NFL, but if we're talking about best performances of the week, I want you to be the best performer of the week. So, fantastic performance by one of the best players in the entire country, and this guy absolutely is going to be a superstar when he ends up coming out. Then we got Fernando Mendoza back on the list. He's been a little bit on the upside, a little bit on the downside, some fluctuation there, but this past week, He lit it up. The Cuban Missile, I think, is his new nickname. I love that. 28 throws, 24 completions, 332 yards, 4 touchdowns, 0 picks, 2 big time throws, 0 turnover worthy plays, 6 carries, 17 yards. Back-to-back games versus Iowa and Oregon that were pretty sloppy. Ends up having some mistakes, ends up rebounding. That is a huge plus. Again, if you start seeing the woes start to become a downward spiral, that's where the red flag pops up. If you see the dip and you see someone come back, especially in this fashion, there's a huge green flag. Fantastic performance by Fernando Mendoza, someone who I do believe will end up being the number 1 pick. Gunnar Stockton, did not ever expect to put him on a plus list. Someone who I'm not really the biggest supporter of, but quarterback out of Georgia had a fantastic week, and he had 31 throws, 26 completions, 289 yards, 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 3 big-time throws, 0 turnover-worthy plays. You guys know me. I love seeing 0 turnover-worthy plays while having some good big-time throws in there. 13 carries, 56 yards, and a touchdown on top of that. So he had 5 total touchdowns. A really good performance. And again, this is a good time for Gunnar to start breaking out. There's some players on his team that did not perform up to par. So Gunnar Stockton, fantastic performance there. Again, he is, I believe, has to come out this year. We all know red shirts end up making things very complicated, but he is still a great performer, and we'll see if he ends up coming out. Jeremiah Love, he's back. Fantastic performance this week as well. Of course, all these guys are. It's the superstars of the week. But this one in particular was his best of the year, in my opinion. 24 carries, 228 yards, and a touchdown with 4 missed tackles forced. Would like for it to be like 6 to 10, but that's okay. 5 receptions on 5 targets for 37 yards as well. So grand total, 29 touches. Quick maths here. I believe that is 265 yards and a touchdown. So really good performance there for Jeremiah Love, making a strong push for potentially even trying to sneak into the top 10. I don't know if that's going to be the case. We'll have to see how Genty and Hampton end off the year. The NFL is very trend heavy. And of course, with Hampton being hurt, that sucks. Genty having a pretty damn rough schedule sucks. But NFL teams are going to be very anxious when it comes to pulling the trigger on top running backs. If, the best running back in the league performance-wise right now, that was among the rookies, is an early 2nd round pick. So keep that in mind, but I still think he's going to be definitely a 1st round pick, and he's a clear RB1. Jeremiah Love ends up leading to Dante Moore. And again, someone who was on the stock down as the dud of the week last week ends up coming right back up and has an amazing rebound. And once again, I love seeing quarterbacks rebound in big games. So great performance here. Obviously, Oregon put belt to ass this past week, so it's good to the whole entire Oregon offensive line as well ended up kicking some ass. So I got to give credit all around. But 20 throws, 15 completions, 288 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception, but 5 big-time throws, 0 turnover-worthy plays, which, in other words, is that interception isn't necessarily his fault, which I love to see that. 3 carries for 49 yards as well. Really good performance and a great rebound for the young superstar there in Oregon. Now let's talk about the stars of the week. There's only going to be one of these. Oh, hello. You guys actually get to see a little bit of a slip up right there with the graphics. But Lawson Lucky is our first one. He was supposed to be a superstar of the week, but, he only did have 5 receptions on 5 targets, had 3 touchdowns, but 43 yards. Still a fantastic performance for the tight end out of Georgia, who is hitting his stride very well. Oscar Delp also having some really good moments. Chris Bell, also another player who's just been red hot, and I'm excited to see him in late November, just about a month here at SMU. 12 targets, 9 receptions, 136 yards, 2 touchdowns, showing off incredible run after the catch ability there versus a very tough defense with Miami. Joe Fagnano, quarterback out of UConn. Don't say that 5 times fast. You'll get suspended on whatever account that you're using. But 31 throws, 23 completions, 362 yards, 4 touchdowns, 0 picks, 2 big-time throws, 0 turnover-worthy plays, 9 carries, 22 yards, and a touchdown. This is the player who has been starting for 7 years. So there's no real NFL translatability here. But, what a performance. Going up against BC and doing that. What a job, man. What a job by those 2 UConn players. I love it. This is why I do this series. Jamel Johnson, defensive back out of TCU, makes his name known once again in this series. 78 defensive grades, 6 defensive stops, targeted 8 times for 3 completions, 24 yards allowed with an interception and a pass breakup. Really good stat line there. Derek Moore, 92 defensive grade, 4 pressures, 2 of them being sacks, 2 defensive stops, and a forced fumble. Then you got Michael Kilbane, edge rusher out of Northwestern, 84 defensive grade, 7 pressures, and 2 defensive stops. Smiley Bradford, love that. Also, Anto Saka for Northwestern had a really good week. Smiley Bradford, defensive back for Purdue, 78 defensive grade, targeted 4 times, allowing 1 reception for 7 yards, and had an interception and 2 pass breakups on the other balls. So, again, a really good performance there. Carnell Tate, I honestly didn't need to include him, but the way he got air for that touchdown was just fantastic. 7 targets, 6 receptions, 111 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Yeah, I just love it. He's just showing so much more refinement than he had last year, and really is soaring up. Like, this wide receiver class is insane. Then we have a pair of edge rushers in Cassius Howell and Colin Simmons, both at Texas schools, one at A&M and one at Austin. But Cassius Howell, 69 defensive grade, 8 pressures, so fantastic. His grade only low because he was targeted twice, allowing 2 receptions for 49 yards, but who gives a shit about that? We ain't using this guy as a coverage guy. But Colin Simmons, 81 defensive grade, 5 pressures and 4 defensive stops with a forced fumble, targeted twice, and got 2 receptions allowed for 15 yards. Once again, not really caring too much about that, in my opinion. Let's talk about the duds of the week. Said the Sloth out of Miami, Carson Beck. Yeah, I'm going to be seeing this guy on November 1st, so that is about a week and a half. I'm excited to be able to see him bounce back. Maybe. I don't know, because I don't really want that to happen to my SMU Mustangs, but 35 throws, 25 completions, 271 yards, 0 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Technically, it could have been 5 if not for a bullshit roughing the passer call, but 1 carry for 4 yards as well. Or excuse me, not 1 carry for 4 yards. I forgot to mark down how many yards he rushed. 1 big time. Oh, no. Yeah, 1 big time throw, 4 turnover plays, excuse me. Technically 5, once again, negated by the pass, roughing the passer. Well, Carson Beck has just had too many awful games. The problem is that people started getting and glazing him once again. I was like higher on Carson Beck than everybody coming into the season saying, hey, this guy is going to be like a late 3rd. Then people started jumping like, this is the best quarterback in the class. I'm like, let's pipe it down. Let's pipe it down. And then now we're back to like, he's like solidified as day 3. So, it's just, this is the problem with the media. They get very, very, very excited, very locked in. And, that's one of the beauties about this is that, since we don't actually have a job that's on the line, we can use our emotion more than just our logic. But sometimes you just got to pump the brakes. And when you watch Carson Beck, he was not playing like a top quarterback. Some of these people just got it plainly wrong. But regardless, let's continue. Bryson Washington had a really tough week. Running back for Baylor. In their loss to TCU, he had 11 carries for 23 yards and a touchdown, but had a fumble with no missed tackles forced. Also in the receiving game, he was targeted twice, getting 1 reception for a yard, and the other target was a drop. So 2 really big mistakes there with the fumble and the drop, in my opinion. Those are red flags for me. And again, 0 missed tackles forced with just about 2 yards per carry. Not a fan of that. And then you got Ethan Kaliak-Manis, the dude who is living either as a dud of the week or a superstar of the week. 8 completions on 25 throws. 79 yards, 0 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 0 big time throws, and 1 turnover worthy play. Just a really bad performance there for Kaliak-Manis. Somebody who has some really amazing throws, but to me, I think he ended up being somewhere around like QB 18. Or maybe I think he's around QB 18, but it just makes some really cool throws. The consistency is not there. Very scary processor. Throws with anticipation. There's a lot to like, but there's also, NFL is very consistent, heavy, and there's a lot of quarterbacks. Nick Singleton, I got a lot of flack for not liking him this season coming into it. I'm just going to be honest. I've stood on business. I always want to challenge my views. Everybody knows that, like, I'll stand on my analysis, but I will never not be willing to try to challenge it. I'll never not try to go back. If everybody's saying, Alex, you're dead wrong, I will go back and watch the player again and again and again, as many times as feasibly possible. And just because I want to make sure, like, the truth will prevail regardless of the amount of times you look at something. And I just personally think that I've never been sold on Nick Singleton. 6 carries, 15 yards, 3 missed tackles forced, 1 reception on 2 targets for 0 yards. Unfortunately, Penn State also just lost again. So while Fat Man is ending up having really solid numbers and actually being a winner of the week, not a star of the week, but a winner of the week, Nick Singleton not doing that himself. Then we have the rest of the duds of the week. Josh Thompson, guard out of LSU. Shout out to his dad. He's actually been pretty supportive over on Twitter. And I've been a supporter of Josh. I think he's a really good high ceiling guard transfer from Northwestern to LSU. This past week, not so good though. 46 pass blocking grade with 3 pressures allowed. Sawyer Robertson, quarterback from Baylor. So we ended up talking about his running back earlier, but 52 throws. Once again, Baylor, stop getting to 100 play games. Like, it gets a little nuts. 25 completions, so under 50%, 318 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 3 picks, 2 big-time throws, 4 turnover-worthy plays, 2 carries for 4 yards. So, again, not a huge fan of especially seeing a 2-to-1 ratio on turnover-worthy plays to big-time throws, especially in a loss. Robert Spears-Jennings, defensive back out of Oklahoma, was supposed to be someone possibly as a day 2 back. He's had some pretty rough outings, 57 defensive grade, a defensive stop, targeted 6 times, allowing 6 completions for 42 yards and a touchdown. Principal Umamielen, edge rusher at Ole Miss, has had some great games. He's been playing pretty banged up. He ended up leaving a game earlier this year with, I believe, a knee injury. 41 defensive grade with no production, was also targeted 1 time, allowing a reception for 13 yards. That's a game where he needed to end up being more productive for sure. Dalen Everett, he ended up having a 63 defensive grade with a defensive stop. He did have a pass breakup, but he was targeted 8 times, allowing 4 receptions for 92 yards and a touchdown allowed. Simply put, I love the pass breakup. I love the defensive stop. If you're going to be an NFL starting cornerback, which I don't believe he is, you cannot be allowing nearly 100 yards and a touchdown a game. And he's had quite a few games where it's been pretty bad. Once again, I'm tossing Noah Thomas in here. If I had another dud of the week, he would have been cut off because at this point, I just don't think Noah Thomas is coming out. I think he needs to transfer again. Shittiest decision I've ever seen from a player who I think could have been a first-round player if he went to the right system. Ends up going to Georgia, where, simply put, too many cooks in the kitchen, man. 0 receptions on 1 target. Just an absolute embarrassment. So then we have Arch Manning, quarterback out of Texas. He didn't have a bad, it's a bad week, but he didn't lose. So we love that. 12 completions, 27 throws. So under 50% again. Not a fan of that. 132 yards passing, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 0 big time throws, 0 turnover-worthy plays, 10 carries for 21 yards, and no missed tackles forced. Hate to say it. It's a pretty damn disappointing stat line. Still got the win. But again, we're talking about NFL translatability here in performances, not necessarily whether you won or whether you lost. But in that loss, or in that victory, Jack Endries was targeted 3 times, getting 1 reception for -1 yards. For a tight end, some people were trying to push as a potential late first player. Obviously, not that kind of guy. Not that guy, pal. Then you got Trevor Gooseby as well. He had a pretty struggle week, ended up having another 3 pressure allowed game with a 51 pass blocking grade, also a run blocking grade in the 50s. Just, again, someone who's still growing, still learning. I'm not a fan of the feet. We'll see what happens, but, definitely somebody that I came into the year a bit lower than most people on, and he's had his very high highs, and he's also had his very low lows. And Spencer Fano, someone who I've ended up transferring from right tackle to someone I think could end up being as a guard in the NFL. Don't think it has to be that way, but 3 pressures allowed with a 50 pass blocking grade. I think there's still a bright future for him as a tackle. It's just, I think you need to have the understanding that there might be a better future at the guard role for Fano. But that's going to be the video. Thank you again for watching, showing the love you always do. I'll see you later. Peace.